Jolly old St. Nicholas wasn't always so jolly. In fact, he had quite a temper. Intrigued? We'll hang around and we'll talk about it. Nicholas of Myra was born around 270 AD and became an early Christian bishop for the church in the area that is now known as the Antalya province in modern-day Turkey. And that's about all we know of him for sure. Almost everything else we know about him comes from legend several centuries removed from his actual life, so in that sense he's much like Patrick of Ireland. We can say for certain he lived, but that's about it. But those legends about him had legs, and so his name remains familiar to all some 18 centuries later, especially this time of year, because of two legends in particular. You see, the story goes that a rich father of 3 daughters became impoverished, leaving him unable to offer a dowry to prospective husbands for the girls. Now, in those days, a woman without a dowry faced the prospect of a life on her own, and in that world, it would leave her very little recourse to support herself. She could be sold into slavery or worse. Well, news of the plight of this man and his daughters reached Nicholas's ears. He was a wealthy man and compassionate, and so he resolved to provide a bag of gold for each of the daughters to use as their dowry. But being a humble man and not wanting to be recognized for the gift, he stole by the house under the cover of darkness and threw a bag of gold for the oldest daughter's dowry through the open window of the man's house, which happened to land in the stockings hanging by the fireplace to dry, and got away before being discovered. The next night, he did it again, this time for the second daughter, and on the last night, he came to provide the dowry for the youngest when he was discovered. So now you know, and the tie-ins to our Christmas celebration in the Western world are obvious. But a lesser-known legend is, in my mind, the real reason for his association with this time of year. You see, in 325, the Roman Emperor Constantine convened Christian bishops to the ancient Turkish city of Nicaea to settle a theological dispute between those who believed that God the Son was a creation of God the Father and thus had a distinct nature. A group led by a man named Arius were teaching this. And then those who believed that God the Father and God the Son were of one nature, and thus God the Father and God the Son were eternally one with one another. Now, legend has it that Nicholas was one of the 318 bishops present at this council, and that he became so incensed at Arius for arguing that the Father and the Son were not one, that he walked over and slapped Arius across the face, leading Nicholas to be briefly stripped of his office as bishop and put in jail. Did it happen? Probably not. There's no record of it in the annals of the council, and the story doesn't show up until 500 years later, but it is a good story. And ultimately, I think this story is the root of why we remember Nicholas this time of year. Not because of the legend of his nighttime gift-giving, but because of the legend of his staunch defense of the truth that Christ was, to quote the famous lines of the Nicene Creed, the only Son of God, eternally begotten of the Father, God from God, light from light, true God from true God, begotten not made, of one being with the Father, and he became incarnate of the Virgin Mary and was made man. In other words, St. Nicholas is remembered this time of year because he understood the true meaning of Christmas. Want to talk about something else? Just ask by emailing justask@bluevalleychurch.org, or check out our Just Ask playlist here on the Blue Valley Church YouTube channel or previous reels on the Blue Valley Instagram feed.